Makers, Ruth here. In this video, we're going to be walking through how to create a painting with your pet. Now, this project was designed for cats and dogs, but please know that if you have another pet, this project can be adapted. I have a dog painter who's going to be joining me in just a little bit to walk through that process, but we'll also be going through what to do if you have a cat. All right, so to get started, let's kind of talk through some of the supplies that we need for today. To start off, let's talk about paint. So we have today, I have three different colors. I have a red, a blue, and a yellow. This is regular acrylic paint. So feel free to bring in whatever kind of acrylic paint that you have. I've got three colors that I'm using. I'm going to talk about mixing colors in just a moment, but know that any other acrylic paint that you have, feel free to bring that in and use that for this project. I've got three colors, but I'm going to be mixing them to give myself more variety. We'll need paints, of course, the acrylic paint. We'll need our paper. Now, for this demo, I'm going to be using paper and a canvas board. I've got an old canvas board that I've painted over. I'm going to use that as my main painting. And then I've got some watercolor paper that I'm going to be using to create duplicates. We'll talk more about that in a second. We'll also need a Ziploc bag. And here's the thing, with your Ziploc bag, you want to make sure that your paper or canvas is small enough to fit inside a Ziploc bag. Today, I'm going to be using a gallon Ziploc bag, and the canvas that I'm working with is 8 by 10. And so is the paper, the watercolor paper. So I know that that paper and that canvas will fit inside this bag. One thing I do want to mention is that everything is happening inside the bag, so your pets don't ever have to touch any of the paint. I know sometimes that's a concern for us. We don't want our pets getting into that toxic paint. And so this way, just as a little insert right there, the paint stays inside the bag and the pets don't touch it at all. So it's super safe for pets. But that being said, we want to make sure that our canvas and our watercolor paper, whatever material we're using, fits inside that Ziploc bag and can close pretty easily. Now, the next thing I want to talk about, it changes depending on what pet you have. Now, you know your pet. You're the expert in your pet. So if your pet likes something different, a different treat, definitely bring that in. For this demo today, I'm going to be using peanut butter as my treat. My dog is a big fan of peanut butter. But let's say your dog likes spreadable cheese better. That's definitely a better option. Or maybe your cat isn't a fan of catnip, but your cat loves playing with ice cubes. Bring the ice cubes in instead. When we get started in this process, I'll talk about how to set it up for which animal. But for this demo today, I'm going to be using peanut butter because that's my pup's favorite treat. Now, these are the main supplies that we're going to be using, but of course I want to talk about protection, protecting our body and protecting our space. So whatever work surface you're working on, make sure that you've got it covered. And it's always good to wear an apron or clothes that you don't mind getting messy. The pets are not going to be touching the paint, but we are. So it's better to be safe than sorry. If you're using acrylic paint, know that that acrylic paint will wash off with a little soap and water. So if you do get it on your hands, it will come off. However, it won't come off on clothes. So just make sure, again, to wear an apron or clothes that you don't mind getting a little messy. So let's get started in our process. To start off, I want to talk a little bit about paint. Now, when it comes to this painting process, and I'm going to move these out of the way for now. When it comes to the painting process, like I said, I've got three colors of paint here. I'm going to be mixing, showing how to mix to create more variety. But know that whatever acrylic paint that you have is good. I'm using a piece of foil to mix my paint on, but you can use a paper plate or a paint palette. Either is good. So the main colors that I have today are red, blue, and yellow. I'm going to be using blue, green, and purple for my project today. And so I'm not going to be mixing, I'm not going to be using anything special with the blue, right? I'm going to use a little red and a little yellow with that blue to create my yellow and or my green and purple, right? So to start off, I'm going to add a little red to my foil. And like I said, this is where I'm going to be mixing my paint. You can see I have a little nose, dog nose that's joining in. He's very excited about painting. So I'm just going to add a little paint. I'm going to add a little blue. And you can see that some of my paint is runnier than others, and that's okay. You can use runny paint, you can use thicker paint, either works well. The thing to keep in mind though is that you need more paint than you think you do. So to mix my paint, I'm using foil surface. Like I said, you can use a paper plate or a to-go plate or paint palette. Anything you have to mix paint is good. You can also use, I've got this tongue depressor, popsicle stick that I'm going to be using to mix paint, but you can also use a paintbrush. So what I'm going to do is just kind of mix my paint in. My red and blue, if I mix them together, that'll create a purple, a nice dark purple, and that's what I want. And you can see as I'm mixing it, it's giving me some nice color. So just take a moment to mix paint if you're wanting to do that. Pick out the colors that you want and set them aside. All right. So I've got a really nice purple here that I'm going to use, a nice dark purple. I think I got it mixed in well enough. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to add some yellow to my blue and get a nice green. So add a little yellow over here. And like I said, we're going to need more paint than we think we do. And I'll talk about that when we actually get to the canvas. So I'm going to mix a little blue with my yellow. I'm going to use my paintbrush for this one. I'm just going to mix those colors in. Before we get started in our painting project, it's always good to prep our supplies. And so I'm taking time right now to make sure that all my colors are mixed in, that I know exactly what color I want to use. All right, so I've got my three colors. I've got green, I've got purple, and I'm going to use this blue. So once you have your colors figured out, go ahead and set those aside. So I'm going to set that here. We're going to come back to that in just a minute. Now I'm pulling my Ziploc bag back out because the next step is prepping that bag. So if you have a dog, I definitely recommend spreading whatever treat they like on top before we add our paint. Right? If you have a cat and you're putting something on like catnip or ice cube or whatever toy they like, we'll want to add that at the end. So this is where it digresses, like it separates just a little bit. So if you've got a dog, let's go ahead and put that treat on the bag. You don't need a whole lot, but I'm just taking a little peanut butter and a spatula and I'm just kind of spreading it. I want to make sure I'm covering the whole surface, but you can see I'm not using a whole lot. It doesn't need to be a lot. It just needs to be kind of spread out. And you can see that I've got lots of gaps. It's really thin. So the peanut butter or treat, whatever treat you're using, is going to help with that painting process because what's going to happen is that your pet is going to be licking off that treat. And by them licking off the treat, it's going to apply pressure to that Ziploc bag to press into that paint and move that paint around. So if you have a dog that you're painting with, go ahead and spread the treat on top. And if you were working with something like catnip, hold off until we get that paint inside. So now that I got my peanut butter, my treat spread on top, I'm going to set this aside and come back to my canvas here. So my canvas, again, I'm using an 8x10 size, so it's small enough to fit inside that Ziploc bag. And so what I'm going to do now is bring my paint back in that I just mixed, and I'm going to add it to my palette here. And I'm just going to spread it around. I'm going to make sure I add a lot of it. Archie's already licking. Nobody, we have to wait. Hold on. So just kind of spread that paint around. And again, you're going to need more paint than you realize, than you think. And so go ahead and add that extra paint. I'm going to pick up my foil and kind of bring it over. However you want to transfer it, if you want to use it straight from the bottle, that's good too. I'm just going to kind of push it off. And you can see this is why it's important to prep your space. Next, I'm going to add my green. I'm just going to kind of fill that in. cover it up. Add that green to different parts. I'm not wanting to spread anything around. I'm just kind of adding it to different areas. And now I'm going to add my blue. So I'm just going to squirt it around. Just kind of filling up the space. Filling that in. All right. So I want to come back. Now that I've got my canvas covered, you can see it's not like a super thick layer, right? And I'm not covering it completely, but I'm using quite a bit of paint, right? And so I want to make sure that surface is covered. And then we'll stick that inside our Ziploc bag. This is probably the trickiest part. So I'm going to wipe up my paint really quickly. Okay. So if you have a dog, like mine, who's very excited about painting, if you have a dog, you want to put that treat on the Ziploc bag first, and then cover your canvas in paint, and then add that painted canvas inside the Ziploc bag and close it. If you are painting with a cat, you want to put the paint on your canvas, slide it into the Ziploc bag and seal it, and then add the catnip on top. Now that we've prepped our painting, it's time to actually do the painting. So I'm going to step over here and we'll get started with that painting process. All right, so once we have our painting prepped, it's time to do the painting. Today I've got Archie with me. Archie's going to do the painting. He likes salmon treats and likes cuddling. He's been painting for about 3 years, so we're very lucky to have him. Archie, come on. Once you get your painting ready, come here. He's very excited. He's done this before and he knows about it. Once you get your painting ready, it's time to let the pets go to work. So I'm just going to kind of hold it still while Archie does the painting. You can put it on the floor. You see I've got a tarp down just in case. It's not because I'm worried that the paint is going to get everywhere, but sometimes those treats do, that peanut butter or spreadable cheese or whatever treat. If you have a cat that's going to be doing some painting today, you want to sprinkle that catnip on it or their favorite treat, and let them kind of play with it for a while. Archie's going to lick the bag clean, but he's just taking his time licking that paint or the peanut butter off. And as he's licking that peanut butter, he's moving around the paint with his tongue. He's not touching the paint. He's just using the pressure from his tongue is pressing the Ziploc bag, which is moving around. So it's a really safe way to paint. So we're going to give him a moment to finish painting, and hopefully your pet is painting too. So as soon as they're done painting, we'll hop back on here and talk about how to finish it off. So once they're done licking off their favorite treat or playing with the catnip or ice or whatever your pet is into, you'll see you've got a pretty clean Ziploc bag. Archie's just double checking to see if he wants any finishing touches. I think he's happy with the results. You may notice with Archie's piece, you can see some of the paint went off the canvas here. Know that that's okay. In just a minute, I'm going to show us how to work with the paint overflowing. So our next step after they're done painting is to open up this Ziploc bag. Now there's a little trick to it, so I'm going to walk us through it. We're going to cut two sides. So we're going to cut one side and then the bottom because we're going to open up that plastic bag carefully. So I'm going to just take my scissors and kind of cut along one side. And then cut along the bottom. The reason we're making sure we can open three sides up is so we can peel off that Ziploc bag and not ruin the painting or mess with the painting that our pet has done. So I've cut one side and the bottom, and I'm just going to carefully open the Ziploc part because that next step is to open up the Ziploc bag. So very carefully, I'm just going to take that top, lift it up. So what we have are basically two paintings. We have one painting that's done on our canvas, and then some more paint that's on the Ziploc bag. So what I'm going to do is take that watercolor paper that I've set aside, and I'm going to press that into the paint in the Ziploc bag because we don't want to waste. So taking that and just kind of pressing it in, not moving it around, but just kind of pressing it in. And then I can peel it up and I have another painting. I have some more paint on here, so I'm going to do it one more time. Take our painting and press it into that paint surface. Now, the reason I like doing it with watercolor paper is because it's thick enough paper. It's really sturdy, but also I can use it to make cards or like other projects as well. And I really like doing that. So I'm going to peel it up. And we have another nice painting. So now we've got three paintings that our pet has done. We have a really nice one on canvas. And then we have two that we have pressed into. So we've got some really nice paintings there. Well, happy painting, everyone. Definitely share the pictures of what your pet has done. We're always excited to see what our pets are painting. And we'll see you soon. Have a great day.